Hey, this is Dag, and you're listening to Beyond Trek Podcast.
Red alert.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Beyond Trek Podcast. After a 3-week be gone, I'm back. I'm Dag, and in the room we have Big J and Renzo. We are going to talk about the Picard Season 2, Episode 4, Watcher. But before we get into that, we have a big announcement. Beyond Trek has landed the most amazing opportunity, and we are going to be featuring on April 12th our interview with the legend of geekdom himself, Wil Wheaton. That's right, Wil Wheaton. For those of you who may not know, he was a big actor back in the 80s and the 90s. He played in some stuff, and he did some cool things. And now you can catch him like every Thursday on Paramount Plus's
The Ready Room.
Thank you.
I
don't know why.
Show, behind the scenes show.
Yep.
That was such a great opener, but then, I ran out of energy.
Ran out of steam right there at the moment where I should have remembered the name of the show, but I couldn't for whatever reason, and I apologize, but it's a great show. It's a great show. Will takes everybody behind the scenes of the episodes, and we love that. We, the three of us here, have all been big fans of Will for a very long time, and we were so welcome and overjoyed to have done this interview with Wil Wheaton. So stay tuned for that, April 12th. Now, let's talk about The Watcher. This is your spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
All right, I mean, obviously this episode was amazing just because, you know, the nostalgia factor for me, like...
Obviously.
But we'll get there when we get there.
All right, so the episode starts on La Sirena, which makes perfect sense because everybody's wondering, like, how are they going to hide this thing? We talked about this in our last episode. In Star Trek 4 was a cloaking bird of prey. Well, now they've got a cloaking La Sirena, so they discuss it, they cloak it, and they bring up the fact that they can't get a signal in talking to Rios or Raffi or Seven because there are no satellites to bounce that signal off of that they have control over in this period.
We got no comm relays.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute, was that always the plan, was they would be able to talk to each other, but Picard and Jurati would not be able to communicate with the away team?
I don't know if that was ever the plan, but that was certainly the expectation.
That's just what ended up happening. Okay.
Yeah.
I do like that 25th century transporters can beam somebody halfway around the world without having a transporter relay or direct line of sight.
That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although I will say, if the La Sirena was in a little bit better shape, I'm hoping that they wouldn't have dropped like Rios on his head because, you know, that kind of sucks.
Yes.
His faceplant looked really rough.
Oh God, that was a rough one.
Yeah.
Speaking of the faceplant,
Modern medicine, medievalism here.
Our next scene is back in the little clinic, Teresa's clinic, where Raffi and Seven arrive. They detect Rios's comm badge. They can't find Rios himself, and an aide named Gabby from that clinic comes out and explains that they got picked up by ICE, and since Teresa is a U.S. citizen, she'll get out, but they should hope they're friend before they can never find their friend again, which is, you know, real ominous.
Yeah.
Definitely more of that whole same fuck the ICE vibe that we got last episode.
Apparently when ICE gets you, that's it.
Did anybody catch the relevant name of La Clinica?
No.
I think I missed it.
So Jurati had been talking about butterflies earlier, and La Clinica is named Las Mariposas, the butterflies in Spanish. So this is your butterfly effect. I don't think that was done unintentionally.
That was on purpose.
So I'm interested in seeing how that plays out some more.
That does explain that the place was decorated with a whole lot of little butterfly decorations on the inside. I assume the kids that are there being treated just, you know, make little butterflies and put them up. But yeah. Cool.
It was a cool
All right,
moment.
so cutting back to Picard and Jurati, they're still trying to hail the away team. Girardi is bundled in a blanket. The ship's heating is all broken. They don't have the power while it's all recharging for that. So they're going to go back into the Picard mansion chateau and keep warm there rather than freezing on the La Sirena.
I was so worried at this point because I was like, you're just going to leave the queen on La Sirena by herself? Like,
yeah.
Is she not just going to be like assimilation tools everywhere? Is she just...
She can't. All that stuff's suppressed.
Right, she's got the inhibitors.
She's got no nanites.
She's got the inhibitors.
Well, what were they going to do? Take her with them? Can't really do that either.
So where did she get the mass to form the cables that connect her to La Sirena in the first place?
Maybe those were stored internally?
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Ew.
Kind of like Wolverine's claws. They're just in there.
Ow, my fingers.
All right, so they head inside Chateau Picard, and they explain that it had been abandoned for basically a century at that point because of the the Nazi occupation of France during the Second World War. So they had hidden tunnels and then escaped to England, which provides us a delightful canon explanation for why Jean-Luc Picard has always had an English accent. Not that we needed one.
It's true.
Not necessary.
But it was nice.
And it wasn't just on the nose. Like, I mean, I guess it's on the nose for those of us who are like diving into minutia, like
right.
like Olympian minutia divers. But you know, it's not one of those things where they look at the camera and go, "Oh, by the way, my last name is French, but I'm English because my people fled to England during World War II." They didn't say that.
I mean, it fits with all the like headcanons and novel explanations that have existed, right? Like he is French.
Yes,
it does.
He
It's
learned
great.
English.
Yep.
In
Yeah.
English style because
Perfect.
France is next to England.
Totally okay
Works
with
for
that.
me.
He
Well,
even
don't you
says
re-
it's going to be centuries before the Picard's return, so that's fine.
Yeah, and wasn't there some beef at the start of season 1 when he actually was speaking French? Like,
People
come on,
hated his
people!
accent.
You complain all this time that he's not French. He's French, but he doesn't speak French or doesn't yada yada yada. Then once he finally does, you fans still aren't happy.
I mean, so Sir Patrick Stewart actually did this at a convention. He was asked, what would the opening monologue to Star Trek TNG sound like if you'd read it in a French accent? And he clearly says, it would sound ridiculous. I did it once with a fake accent, and we crashed out of that immediately. Right?
Have you heard it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. Heard
The
it
final frontier.
Yeah.
These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise.
Entreprise. Yeah, it's bad.
Hey, this is 24th century French. We say Enterprise now. Get over yourself.
Anyways, it's real goofy. So yeah, it's good that they gave us like, I like it. It's a good explanation. It wasn't necessary, but it works for me. Cool. So Picard finishes making like a fire in the fireplace. They have like this good discussion talking about why they left this house, right? Picard has some little flashbacky childhood memories, which, you know, haven't happened yet, which is also fun.
Flash forward memories now?
I guess. Flash forward memories.
I mean, what if his memories are being rewritten due to the events he's currently living through?
But wait a minute, your memories wouldn't change just because you went back in time. You still have those memories. You still
depends
remember.
On which science
Theory of
fiction time travel we're using here.
I have not seen one ever that the person who goes back in time does not remember all the stuff that they had already known. Can't think of any.
I mean, the
Back
to the Future novelization explains that Marty has memories from both lives now at the end of Back to the Future 1. And that's why he's so susceptible to the whole, you're a chicken, in 2 and 3. Which he didn't have a problem with that in the first, you know, it wasn't a plot point then. But it would be one of those really cool ways to introduce breaking that fourth dimensional aspect of having future people in the future affecting the past in a way that affects their perception of their own history. That would be something that would be cool to see.
It would.
So the scene continues with Girardi like starting to like poke around the room. She plays with like an abacus. Picard keeps telling her that you need to rest. Like, stop futzing around and get some rest. Like, you spent time in the Borg Queen's mind. You just relax, right? Picard tells the story of how they used to listen to Edith Piaf's Non Je ne regrette rien, trying again, to calm him down. Girardi and Picard just have like a very fun little discussion about like the skinny kid with the endless book collection, and how looking around at all the novels that they've got lying around.
Weren't we talking about? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking, weren't we talking about that song a week or two ago?
Yeah.
And I forgot to say this, but I think the reason, were we wondering why that was always used? And I must be dreaming something else. I think that the reason that one is always used is because that's probably the one most recognizable song besides the Voulez-vous coucher? I can't speak French.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Avec moi.
Avec moi, that's right. Yeah, so
They're
there are two
all-
French songs we know.
I don't think so. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think the
think-
meaning of the song is actually pretty important for this.
Just
It is?
the meaning and not the fact that it's the second recognizable French song that anyone knows.
It may also be rights free. It may be in public domain.
Oh.
I'm not sure how old that
It's
song
from
is.
'65, I think I saw when I looked this up
Is it?
before.
Okay.
It's not.
That's
it's not
fine.
as old as everybody thinks.
But it was also used in Inception,
yes.
Yes.
so that was
That's-
cool.
I think that is a more significant factor, that people recognize this song as having something to do with memories and time and like time dilation, right?
Yeah.
That's what people associate it with. But the meaning of the song is that no, I have no regrets, right? Which is
Mhm.
something that Picard kind of has to overcome. You should have regrets. You have done things that were wrong. You need to accept that you do have regrets, things that you could have done better. So, yeah, I think that that's more involved with the plot, anyways. But yeah, so we cut to this bit of Girardi looking for like a bottle of wine. She looks at like 3 or 4 bottles while pulling them out of a box, and she essentially settles on a Pinot Noir. And then she pulls out like a volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica from the wall. And at that moment, Picard makes this like fascinating deduction that, you're on something here, because you set 15 on the abacus, you pulled a bottle of 1915 wine, and you pulled the 15th volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica. What the hell is the meaning of 15? Why 15? And,
I never would have caught that.
This is a flashback to Cause and Effect, another time travel episode of Star Trek where the number of pips on Riker's collar were the answer to another timey-wimey puzzle.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Anyways, so what they deduce is that today's date in the episode is April 12th. They're presuming that April 15th is the date that the future changes irrevocably, so they have to like fix it by then, or set things right by then.
Anybody else
And-
familiar with the dates April 12th through April 15th in history?
I
It is
didn't look
the
it up.
day the Titanic launched and the day the Titanic sank.
Get out of here. Really?
Okay, bye.
Neat. Neat.
Not literally. I
It,
mean,
it probably has
interesting.
nothing to do with the actual. So I
Coincidence.
just found it very interesting that those are the dates that they picked for this particular time frame. It also reassures us that they're not going to come across Cisco and Jadzia and Bashir in San Francisco because they're not going to arrive until just before September 2024.
Yes. And I understand that you have to have a goal. You have to have a date that you have to get things done by, with it being the 15th. I understand that. It's just Picard having the wherewithal to see that she put together 15 on the abacus, picked up the bottle of wine and that book. I'm glad I'm not in that situation where that's on me, because there's no way I would have caught that it was 15
Well,
on all of those.
This is not Picard's first experience with time travel, right? Or with the Borg, and with subconscious like manifestations of thought, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
he's probably like on the lookout for signs that either the Borg Queen has asserted control over some part of her. He's on the
Mhm.
lookout for some kind of chronometric disturbance that's making people behave funny. So he's probably looking at everything in hyper detail, and then he's like, "Oh, well, shit, 15. You keep doing that. Why?" Right? So
All you have
sounds
to
like the
say is,
kinda-
Big J, there's a lot of people that pay more attention to things than you do. Captain
that goes
Oblivious
without
here.
saying. Nobody has to
Ooh.
say that.
Dang, Renzo.
Just sounds...
That one hurt.
Oof.
You said it. I'm agreeing with you.
First Will Smith,
but
now
kidding
this.
here.
Jeez.
Oh, too soon.
To date this episode.
All right. So our next scene is probably Dag's favorite scene of this entire show.
Yeah, I
Bus
was
scene.
just. First of all, how did they get on the bus without exact change?
No, they did have money. Remember, Raffi robbed that dude's wallet.
Oh,
Right.
right. Okay. Now that worked. That works. Okay. So we have money. We're on the bus. It's cool. And then there's some just jerk playing music too loud. And it's really weird. Like, Seven just asks him to turn it off, and he just does. Like, I thought that was really anticlimactic. Why wasn't there more of a conflict there? Seven should have gone over and like assimilated him, or maybe done like the
Notice how
Vulcan
he grabbed
nerve
his
pitch?
neck?
Yeah,
Maybe
he
somebody
messed with-
punched him in the throat or something. Who knows?
Yeah, did something to his neck.
So I can't hold my joy anymore. I love Kirk Thatcher so much. I talk about him a lot. He does a lot of Muppet stuff. He designed the Rancor on Return of the Jedi, 1982.
Ooh.
He was the reason that I went to Star Wars Celebration Anaheim in 2015 when The Force Awakens came out. And like third on my list was Mark Hamill. So like if that tells you how much I really like Kirk Thatcher's work. And
We got to get him on this show, man.
when I knew they were going to be when I saw the pictures of them on a bus in the promo release of just the two of them on a bus, I was like, that's the scene. We're going to get a cameo. He's going to be there, because they wouldn't have him on a bus unless we were going to just make a nod. And it was really great to see him. He's changed a little bit. You know, he's a little more
38
receptive.
years have passed.
It was 38 years since he got on that last bus.
He's receptive to other people, and he just really likes that song. Also, I think he sang that song too, because
He did.
I know he did.
did.
I know he did. I hate you for Voyage Home. Did you guys actually check the credits to see if he sang?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I Still Hate You.
I Still
he
Hate
also wrote
You.
it and updated it.
It's, I still hate you, and I'll eviscerate you. Yeah, no, it's great.
It was updated lyrics, wasn't it?
Paramount
Kinda like-
Plus, please release
Gotcha.
that to Spotify. I have the Star Trek 4 disc. That's the only adaptation of the soundtrack that has "I Hate You" on it, the full song.
Oh, that's a collector's item.
Hard to find.
Yeah, the song even says it's been 35 years and so forth. So yeah, it's been updated. It's great. I don't know if he wrote it entirely solo, but I do know that he sang it for the part. There was an interview that I read with him, which was pretty neat.
He's great.
That was a great throwback. I love that.
Yep.
That being said, what we do have to wonder now is, in the 30 years between Voyage Home in San Francisco and now Watcher in Los Angeles, was he stuck in traffic this whole time? It wouldn't surprise me with LA traffic.
I had my own little fun headcanon here that so Kirk Thatcher was in Spider-Man Homecoming,
New York City, yeah.
as the punk on the street who's just a guy with a beard, the same boombox, and his compatriot is asking Spider-Man to do backflips on a building and stuff like that. And so having this headcanon that the punk on the bus was in San Francisco, it got a little too rough for him, so he moved to New York, where he had to witness all the Spider-Man and Avengers junk. And he's like, you know what? New York's getting destroyed every other week. I'm going back to California. And then he gets
Where
back to
nothing happens.
California, and then he hears from his friend, because 2024, that's a year after the snap. It's the same year as Spider-Man Homecoming and all that, if you follow the Marvel timeline. But the guy who was in Spider-Man Homecoming was in Shang-Chi in San Francisco on the bus when Shang-Chi had to fight all those people on the bus. Just funny moments there. I say it's the same guy. He just got his hair done again, and he's like, I'm recapturing my youth. I just really love this song.
It could be all right.
But
We
yeah,
can buy that.
I also like the fact that when he was told, like, hey, can you turn that down? He not only does it, because it's really punk to be polite, but he, like, grabs at where his neck was nerve pinched. So, like, he has memories of the day that Spock touched him.
And now we found out that it's quite possible that the snap and the blip are canon in Star Trek.
At least in Dag's world.
Yeah, and that's the only place that matters for me. Everybody else, your mileage may vary.
Yep.
All right, so that seems pretty cool overall, just for the throwback aspect, but there's a bit more to it. Seven talks to Raffi about her still being distraught about the death of Elnor, and Raffi is certain that they'll fix it. It'll be fixed when they fix the timeline. It'll get fixed. It's not permanent. And this sounds like a coping mechanism. It sounds like a little bit of denial. We don't know if that's how it's going to work. Girardi made it clear that we don't know if that's how it's going to work. So Elnor may be dead. We don't know. So
It's going to be a big mystery. I hope he's not dead, but
the sad part about it is if they use time travel to do it, the Elnor that we knew is dead. There may be another Elnor from another timeline who acts and is just like our Elnor, but this Elnor is dead.
well, and it wouldn't be the first time Star Trek has done something like that. Harry Kim would like to have a word.
I have an exception for you though, Dag. If how they resolve the time travel plot, because this was caused by Q, right, ends up being like, and none of this ever happened, which, you know, Year of Hell style, then it would still be the same Elnor.
I mean,
Yeah.
if none of this ever happened and they have no memory that this was a thing, okay, they just turned the Year of Hell into what it was intentionally was, a full season instead of a 2-part episode in the middle of a...
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying I want that. I'm just
No.
saying that that's the only way I can think of where...
No, you're right.
Where, you know,
You're right. If everybody forgets and the timeline is reset, then yes, Elnor has been restored. But as it stands...
or everyone but Picard maybe doesn't remember it or something along that line.
You know what? If this was just okay, here's a question I want to ask you. At the end of this whole weird, timey, loopy stuff, should Picard still be a synth? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and so
I mean, in the evil timeline, they even said that that's why you have a synth body. It's because of Gul Dukat and whatever he did to you.
Right.
Right.
My thinking
Yeah.
is just, if this whole episode is to teach Picard a lesson for not reaching out first instead of acting the way that Q keeps pushing this on him as the trial of humanity and stuff, maybe it will rewrite Picard's history and he would have made different decisions and he'll have a human body again.
I don't think so. I think the point of this whole lesson is a single issue, right? I think that this moment where the Borg Queen, the mechanical Borg Queen, reaches out for help us Picard, and then I need power. I think that the misunderstanding there is all that Q is trying to fix, right? Trying to get Picard to everywhere be nicer has way too many butterflies. But getting him to trust this queen for that moment, maybe that's something he can accomplish.
And I have thoughts on who we're looking at there at the end of this episode.
okay.
All right, so back on La Sirena, Picard is going to beam himself to LA to go find the Watcher. At the coordinates that was extracted from the brain of the Borg Queen with the shit I stole from the Borg Queen file.
Honestly, that was such a badass moment for Girardi.
Yes, I can't agree more. It's one of my favorite things for her. Okay, so so Picard beams out, and then we get this mocking conversation between the Queen and Girardi about her always being treated like an afterthought and so forth and so on. It's part of this like cruel psychological manipulation that the Queen is engaged in, which will probably be very effective.
I really like I'm drawn to like Annie Wershing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Name the actress that plays the Borg Queen. I don't know if you guys have ever seen anything else she was in. The one that I can really 24, and then she was in what was the last season? 24, the last original season. I think season 7. Anyway, she just, the look that she has in playing the Borg Queen is, I think, is more mesmerizing to me and kind of offsetting than Alice Krieg as the Borg Queen. They play them differently. This new Borg Queen here actually kind of scares you in a non-scary way. To her, I kind of see her as more of a, if I get too close, she's going to rip my throat out. Whereas the Borg Queen from First Contact and Voyager finale, it was different. It was more the sultry seductress Borg
I
Queen,
think
whereas this one,
Borg Queen is doing it too, though. I think she's trying to just seduce Girardi.
she is. Maybe it's her facial expression, or it's just there's something different that to me kind of feels a little more on edge about being around her than the Borg Queen from First Contact.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. They're definitely being played differently, right? And I think what we've gotten kind of different feels for different Borg Queens. Like the one that we had in Voyager sometimes came off as far more menacing than enticing, but the First Contact Borg Queen was definitely trying to seduce Data. Was definitely trying to seduce Picard until she decided to just insult him instead, right? Like there's a coquettishness to her behavior. So it really depends on which queen, how they behave. And I agree. I think Annie Wershing is knocking it out of the park with this portrayal. She is terrifying. But the entire time you're watching, it's like, bitch, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. Like, what? Girardi, you know, but what are you doing, Girardi? Girl, no. Right? Like, that's my whole brain this entire time I'm watching these scenes. But it is still terrifying how it's working.
Right, because you look at her and just like you said, Renzo, I know what you're doing, but I'm going to do it anyway because you're so mesmerizing.
Sounds like you have a little bit of a crush.
Well,
and also, never stick your dick in crazy, you know?
There's a tiny little bit of, I know what you're doing and I can see what you're doing it, but I want to know what your end game is.
Right, I want to know
so
more.
I'm going to play along a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited to see exactly where this plot line goes because terrifying.
I think Girardi might go full Anakin Skywalker and get turned to the collective.
She knows in 39 years, sure, she's going to be right back there in Montana. If things go well, she's going to be there in 39 years. She could leave a message for herself or some kind of hub or something.
Yeah.
A note, sticky note. What's the weather like in Montana this time of year, 2024?
Probably
I digress.
frigid. Probably quite frigid.
Yep.
Cold.
Okay. So Girardi leaves her and tells her to go back to plotting or whatever it is Borg Queens do. So Girardi understands that this is all manipulation too. Girardi's not stupid. Girardi's a cyberneticist. She understands how this all works, right? We just have to hope that Girardi is as clever as the Borg Queen seems to think she is.
You're right. You're right on everything that Girardi is doing and knows, but there's something in Girardi's face and her look in her eyes that tells me I know what you're doing and I might be in.
I mean,
I'm
I get
getting
it.
this.
I don't disagree.
Sell me your pitch. I'm listening, kind of thing. I got a bad feeling about this.
The more discussion that we're having about this, the more the puzzle pieces in my twisted brain are fitting to the words that I'll have for the end of the episode.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So next scene is Picard materializing at 10 Forward Avenue.
Again.
A place which he visited just a couple episodes ago to see Guinan. He enters the empty bar. He finds a bottle of saurian brandy in a milk crate. And then a young woman confronts him, telling him that the bar is closed. It's our first look at the new Guinan. And this is a very young Guinan, much younger looking than she did when she was in the 1830s with Samuel Clemens? 1890s?
1893.
Okay, 1890s with Samuel Clemens. So maybe there's more time travel shenanigans afoot for her. We don't know. Or maybe it's just weird Elorian aging. We can't rule it out either.
I've got words.
And her name is... Sorry, Jay. Her name is... I believe it's pronounced Ito Agayere.
Yeah,
But
she's beautiful.
Don't quote me on that.
So I've got beef.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Jay. I'm here to address your beef because I know what it is. Go.
Same.
All right. Big J's beef. So we've had that discussion that's based around, well, this Guinan could be a different Guinan because she looks different than the Guinan from of what's it? Isn't that what you just...
Nope.
So, okay. Well, anyway, I think what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to picture that the Guinan we're looking at right now is what Guinan should have or would have looked like in that episode had there been a time travel-y hindsight's 20. There was no reason to get anyone else but Whoopi Goldberg to play Guinan in that episode. But I think what we're supposed to take from this is that, okay, imagine this person at this age was who we saw back then in the 1890s. Here's the beef I've got. Guinan would know who Picard was coming in to the bar. That's my beef.
Okay.
Renzo,
Really?
I'm
I
ready to handle it.
Renzo and I are right there on the same page.
I came
Oh,
ready for
okay.
this.
You guys are
Okay.
ready. Let's hear it.
Hold on.
Listen,
Hold on. I'm gonna write it
I
down in my
s-
hand, and I'm gonna turn my hand around. Go ahead and talk.
Okay, so remember how there's time travel afoot?
Yeah.
That never happened. Picard never went back in time to meet Samuel Clemens because the Picard of the evil universe, which is the one that we're on the path towards, never did that. Right? So
But that path hasn't happened yet.
it already has happened. They have to fix the timeline. They have to stop it from being corrupted. Everything right now is on the path to the dark timeline of evil and doom and fascists, right? They have to stop that. So all of the future stuff is laid out in a way that would be that evil timeline. So
But April 15th is the divergence,
that's
not
when it
now.
becomes irrevocable. That doesn't mean it hasn't already been
So
changed.
the other thing is that the April 15th thing is the point of divergence, sure, but the point of divergence moves forward in time. So in the year 2367, that divergence has already rippled past that to the 25th century. And in 2367, instead of finding Data's head under San Francisco and tracking that mystery to Davidia 2 and jumping back to 1893, they never did that because Picard the Conqueror was too busy going out being the best general the Confederacy had. Wherever the Davidians were up to, if they were handled in a different way, if they never were handled, that's up for the story. But the events as we saw them in Time Zero no longer happened that way because of the time change in the future that has now affected the past as well.
Furthermore, things like the Bell Riots intervention by Cisco and Jadzia also probably can't happen right now because the Cisco of the future is a General Cisco who is brutally putting down the Vulcan resistance, right? That Cisco probably not so inclined to be one with the Prophet's alien entities, and so not going to be time traveling much at all.
Not going to be a
Right.
Dax at all because she's Trill.
And she's, yeah, exactly, non-humans. A safe galaxy is a human galaxy, right? So none of these things that are in our like Star Trek canon that we know of are possible in this timeline because they've been preempted. They can't happen until they fix whatever's gone wrong.
So April 15th isn't the point of divergence. They're already there. It's just that is when the deadline to change it
To
before it
undo
just
it.
cannot ever
Right.
Correct.
be changed.
So
And we don't know why. We don't know why it's irrevocable, but we know that that is the point where it stops being something you can undo.
so
We're
Renzo,
already pretty much in it. Okay.
I'm gonna boil your fourth dimensional noodle. If Picard and crew never came back to 1893 to help Guinan and Mark Twain and stop the Davidians, there could not be a Spock on a bus to pinch a punk on the bus. And it's convenient that we
Right.
just lost Renzo because I told you I was going to boil his fourth dimensional noodle.
You
and-
did.
And now
You really
he
did.
just
You were not
looks-
kidding.
He's paused in time, completely gone.
Oh, that's the perfect time to do that. Yeah.
Nope,
well, 'cause-
not having it.
nope. Fake news. No. Well, that's why I got a C in temporal mechanics because this stuff just gets
Yeah.
it gets tough.
The time travel-y stuff.
It is very difficult.
The
like
time
I
travel stuff is very weird.
oh my god, it is.
As a Back to the Future nutcase, I've gone over this kind of thinking a bit to be like, oh, there goes our template. Whatever. We'll just keep recording and we'll put a little thing over. But I've gone over this thinking a lot. Like in Back to the Future Part 1, at the end, Marty comes back from 1955 to witness his past self go back to 1955, right?
Right.
So, but that past self comes from a family that's well-to-do, and he arrives in 1955. Does he arrive in 1955 at the same place and time as the other Marty did? Because there's now two different kinds of Martys here. Anyway, Renzo, did you hear that or did you freeze?
I froze and lost everything.
Oh, man, it
I'm
was
gonna
so
blow your
good, though.
fourth dimensional mind. How about this?
And then it got blown.
All right, I'm gonna blow your fourth dimensional mind again. Let's hope we get through here. If Picard and crew could not go back to 1893 to stop the Davidians because of the way the time travel went, then there could not be a Vulcan on a bus to neck pinch a punk.
Who says it was a Vulcan who neck pinched him?
I'm not
He grabbed at his
saying.
neck.
I'm not
I
saying
know
it's a
what you're
Vulcan.
saying.
I'm not
I
saying it's
saw
a
the same
Vulcan.
post.
I'm just
I saw
saying.
this-
I'm just
I
saying.
think there's too much. There's too much we're talking about getting unraveled. I get
I
what
agree.
you're saying, but that just leaves open way too many pieces of things that suddenly just
No, you're
go all over
absolutely
the
right.
place.
And,
Absolutely.
And what's awesome about the way that you were exposed to this, and now you're like, wow, everything unravels. That's exactly what happens. All of the time travel events in the future are now unraveling because there isn't a Federation. Picard, Kirk, Janeway, Archer, those people didn't go back in time to stop what they did. There was no Xindi War because there was no Federation to destroy the Xindi. There was no Carpenter Street. There was none of this stuff. The Xindi were probably destroyed way before any of that happened anyway. But
I will say this though, as far as the rock punk on the bus, I think that it could have just been Kirk still had to time travel because whale probe, right? He time travels. Dude is annoying him. He just punches him in the throat. We don't have to presume it was a Vulcan or anything.
I like that line of thinking, except Seven specifically states in a previous episode that the Confederacy had no time travel capability. There's
Correct.
no way for Kirk to go back in time to do that. So
That's the whole reason why they needed the Borg Queen.
Totally digging into the minutia here.
Yeah, we're too deep.
It's not important. We got a great cameo, and the writers have come out to say that Time Zero did not happen. So this is
So
where
does that
we
mean
are with
Coda
Guinan.
doesn't happen? Does that mean Coda can't happen now? Does that mean we get the lip verse back too?
Okay, yeah,
I'm
you're
kidding,
gonna
I'm
make
kidding,
my
I'm kidding. I'm not gonna go that
brain
way.
blue screen.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
like,
too
listen,
much.
time
Too
travel-
much.
No,
time
you're
travel's
right.
confusing.
If there's no Borg going back in time to 2063, there's no Enterprise coming back forward from 2063 to get intercepted by a Borg assimilated world. So Coda can't happen. The Litverse is now paradoxical. It can and cannot happen. Schrodinger's Litverse. Sorry, David Mack.
All right. Well, we'll have to ask David Mack about this when we get him back on.
Oh
So,
God.
all right. So we get this awesome scene with Guinan and Picard, where Picard is trying to like hint that I know who you are. You're an Elorian. Hello, and then these other little references, but he can't say who he is. He doesn't want to say where he's from. He's trying to avoid all of the important details until she pulls a shotgun on him. So pretty great scene.
Cool
And
that
I
she
think
had a
that the-
pibby. She had
True.
a pibble. It was cool.
She did have. I actually think that is Sir Patrick Stewart's own pitbull.
I do
Like,
believe.
that is his.
I think
I
that's
believe I
number
remember
one.
reading that. I think it's a different dog than number one.
Fine. It's number two.
But either way, the pitbull was great. Very adorable. Luna is the name of the dog, which I believe is the name of Patrick Stewart's actual dog. So
Worth. Love it. He's a passionate rescuer, which is awesome.
oh yeah. Yeah. I have my own little rescue. He's a menace. But
I like that Picard's wearing a red shirt here.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
command.
all right, so cut to our next scene, which is Raffi and Seven approaching the LAPD looking for Rios, and they've got this like DMV-esque scene where they're like, well, where is he? Do you not have him? Where the hell is he supposed to be? You're supposed to be helping me, right? And Raffi is clearly losing it, and Seven is like, we're gonna respect your personal space. We're gonna take a couple steps back. We're gonna chill out for a minute, and it's showing off that when Seven isn't burdened by her XB appearance, she unleashes her
Charisma.
charisma. Yeah, her charisma and her interpersonal skills in a way that's just much more advanced.
This is also a really interesting highlight here. Like, Raffi just expects to walk up to law enforcement and be a trusted Federation citizen with personal data of other citizens in a Federation where personal data is collected like that. And that's not the case here. And it does sort of, ring some interesting bells on privacy and security. Like, should we be better with these things, or should we not be better with these things in today's day?
This scene cuts both ways on that, though, right? Because in just a few minutes later, when they're breaking into the car, she talks about how all the databases are connected here, all the systems are connected here, which implies that in her time they're not.
They're more. Well, yeah. Think of the air gap of all the pads. Each pad has a different page of a document on it, so to look busy, you have pads all over a desk. That is the sign of being busy.
It's when you download an audiobook and 400 pads appear on your desk.
Exactly.
I bought 21 ebooks today, so.
Oh man.
And they're all on your exclusive tricorder. Get it now.
Oh, nice.
I mean, this is my pad, but yeah. All right. So, anyways, this scene is pretty cool. They sit down, and Raffi is clearly not having any time for this bullshit with dealing with the bureaucracy of the LAPD. Seven calms her down, and then another person who's in the same situation, it seems, or maybe a lawyer or something, gives them some advice that ICE detainees won't be in their system. They have to go to the ICE office specifically to find that. So, it's kind of what's going on there.
You have to put this form in down the hall. We don't do that here. I hate the DMV.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of scenes of that, right? I think that Babylon Rising, what's the name of it? No, Jupiter Ascending. Jupiter Ascending had a fantastic scene for this, where Jupiter is trying to get herself recognized as being the owner of the Abraxas Corporation, and she has to go from this room to this room to that office to this office, getting that sheet from this sheet and that place to this, and at the end they're just like, fuck it, bribe. And that's how they cut through the bureaucracy.
Yep.
So,
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Vogon bureaucracy, right there.
I was just thinking that.
both of them, by the way, are based on an older one. It's from Asterisks and Obelisks in the City That Makes You Go Mad, or the Building That Makes You Go Mad. One or the other. There's this. It's an older cartoon. It's from the 60s. It's a scene where they literally are trying to figure out some Roman bureaucracy. They're a pair of Vikings in Rome, trying to figure out where they go, and it does the same thing. It's, well, you need form 14C, but you need to get that in room 72. They go to room 72. No, they moved 14C to room 18, so they have to go back down, and the characters are just going up. It's all based on that scene, which is really, really cool.
And
but yeah.
mind-numbing.
Yeah, that's the idea. All right, so cutting back to Teresa and Rios that are in the ICE detention block. The ICE officer is trying to bully someone into signing their transfer papers, and as soon as Rios is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is messed up. Somebody gives you a uniform and a badge and it makes you high and mighty, and then he gets tased.
Because the answer to that question was, well, yes, indeed it does. Again, this whole scene was another on the nose highlight of, this is real. This is real stuff. This is not just a Star Trek make-believe fantasy kind of thing. These are things that are actually happening. Yeah. And it's so true what they're portraying here. It's crazy. The cages with the people and the kids with foil on them as a blanket. Wow.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, those foil blankets are actually really good for staying warm. But yeah.
To be doubly fair, those foil blankets are every blanket we've ever seen on Star Trek prior to this as well.
True.
True.
I don't mean to minimize the travesty that's happening in the U.S. with immigration and that kind of stuff. But every blanket in Star Trek has just been a shiny lame blanket.
Would it be ironic if that was where we got the idea for detaining foreigners and minorities, was something that was in Star Trek that was, hey, we could probably use that. That looks like that would make for a good blanket.
No,
let's put it together.
Leveler blankets like that have been around since the early 50s. They were Cold War kind of thing.
You know, it's funny. I
Star Trek.
have little fold-up blankets like that in my car, just in case you're in an accident. They're survivor blankets. You put them on to stay warm.
Mm-hmm.
It's a foil blanket?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Anyways, so back to the scene, right? Rios eventually stops convulsing on the ground, comes over and talks to Teresa through the gate, or through the grate rather, of the fencing, and she jokes about still trying to figure out whether he's stupid or brave, and Rios jokes that if she figures it out, call my late mother, which is a little dark humor here, but appropriate.
Am I the only one that's worried about any interaction that anyone has with anybody? You remember Trouble with Tribbles? No, I'm sorry. Trials and Tribulations, the DS9 episode when they went back. Bashir and O'Brien were having a conversation in the turbo lift when that female officer had just been in there.
Dr.
And
Watley.
Bashir's stressing out that could have been his grandmother, great grandmother, something. And is he going to cause a paradox that would make himself not exist?
His own great grandfather. Yeah.
Right. Make himself his own great grandfather.
You keep laughing, but wait till we get to the station and you find out I don't exist. And Miles is like, huh.
I think you're over worrying a little bit, right? Like,
I would be afraid to talk to anybody if I traveled in the past because you never know.
Yeah, but Rios hasn't watched Star Trek like we do, so he doesn't know.
Though they've all had training from Department of Temporal Investigations on minimizing impact for when they end up eventually time traveling. That being said, it's impossible to know what's going to be like a significant event in someone's life, right? But just a random dude that you fixed up in your clinic, of which you probably fix up 40 dudes a day, probably not so significant for her. This is not the first time she's been in a detainee, so I don't know.
No, but it may not be her. The fact that she's in this facility now and not at her clinic patching somebody up could mean somebody lived or died in the original timeline who won't now.
But that presupposes that she didn't get picked up anyways this time.
I mean, it was Rios that got her arrested, so that is a thing that we could pivot on. We could argue it.
It was Rios that got her arrested this time, right? It might have been maybe it was the fact that Gabby comes out from the other room holding something that time, and that's what the ICE officers use as their excuse to arrest her anyways. Could have been anything.
No,
it's
you're right.
To know if that's
the resources that went to rescue Rios could have gone to rescue somebody else who had an equal likelihood of getting her arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Time travel, man. It's a hell of a drug.
Time travel's so fucking annoying for this.
Oh my god, yes it is.
All right, so ending the scene though.
We're moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward now, because otherwise we'll be stuck in this one spot. We go back to 10 Forward Avenue, rather, and Guinan remarks that she can count on one hand how many times she's been identified by her species while she's been on Earth, and asks where Picard is from. He answers he's from France. And then she gets real pissy about that, right? Like, it's great. Like, yeah, I know that doesn't matter. It's more of a when are you from, not a where, right? Like,
you
really
moron.
trying to get the details. But Picard, unlike Rios, is trying to minimize any sort of potential that he might impact the timeline.
Well, Rios is just going through a comedy of errors. It's like he
also
just
got a concussion, dude.
Yes.
Well, it's because he was beamed in from several feet off the ground. Yeah, from 3 stories up. So it's just he's just there. It's kind of like just a snowball rolling down the hill. He's not able to really get his bearings back to not corrupting the timeline because it's just there's this chain of events set in motion that he can't really control anymore.
Let's be real though, right? Like, if you want to set the barrier for changing the timeline and then just butterfly effect like crazy, from the moment that Seven beams in and that little girl sees her and she asks, "Are you a superhero?" and she goes, "Can you keep my secret?" That can change all of time. That girl may have then, because of that, started to believe that superheroes and supernatural things are real, which sends her in a different path than she would have otherwise. Maybe she could have gone on to cure cancer or something as a scientist, but now she believes in crazy things, and now she never changes the future that way.
But we've already established that Superman and them already exist in this universe, and that's why she asked if she was a superhero, because
not Superman, we're talking Marvel.
Man. The Avengers.
Superman's not in the Avengers.
Spider-Man.
Disney doesn't own Star Trek. That's
my
a
head canon.
Company.
I just want to say my head canon. I'm going to disclaim that. Can I talk about Guinan here though, and how utterly refreshing it is to see a jaded and just angry Guinan who doesn't have all the answers, who's been around long enough to be like, this is the pattern. This just happens. These people are going to kill themselves. It's going to be game over. And how to compare that with the Guinan that we've always experienced, who was always 10 steps ahead of everybody else, always cool as a cucumber, always had a way out, knew a way out, didn't need a way out because she knew how it was going to end. It is absolutely cool to give this character a dark period. Now, I mean, if she waits around 40 more years, she can watch, Spock's grandpa say hi, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, but for those 30 years in between, World War III is not a fun time to be on Earth.
Right, and how's she going to get off?
She's not leaving. I guess she's got a ship hidden somewhere.
She did mention her father in 1893. You must go back and tell my father I'm not ready, which implies that they have some form of clandestine surface to space travel.
And we know that she's eventually on the Lakul on a transport coming through the Beta Quadrant that has to be rescued by the Enterprise B. So she certainly eventually makes it back to her homeworld or something in the Elorian space.
The Confederacy probably blew up the Elorian planet.
True.
You're doing it again. We're going to start digging again into the time travel.
No. It's another 300 years away.
Yeah. All right. So anyways, this scene is really cool. I did like the jaded kind of like cynical view of Guinan. I personally was really fixated on the whole like giving away her dog to Uncle Dale, right? Because she's leaving, so she's giving the dog to somebody else. And I was just really sad by it. That just hit me. It's like the idea of like you're leaving home and you have to give away your dog. Yeah. Very rough for me.
Yeah.
Do you wonder if either her or someone in her race, the reason why she's got this thought or convinced that we're just going to destroy ourselves is because they know what happened on Vulcan, that the Vulcans pretty much just about eliminated themselves out of existence before Vulcan's version of Jesus taught them about suppressing their emotions?
We don't have any clear numbers on the first contact between Elorians and Vulcans, but I wouldn't be surprised if Elorians were running clandestine watching operations or listening operations on a number of worlds. We already know she was doing it on Earth, so it would be a natural fit for a long-lived species to become the archivers of life in other worlds.
Think of them as a culture that wants to go out and listen to things before they wipe themselves out, right?
Yeah.
Like if their entire purpose ends up being archivists, like Dag just said, right? They're going to focus on places that whose knowledge or whose identity is going to be lost, right? So they probably spend a lot of time on worlds that are similar to ours, right at the precipice of either wiping ourselves out with nuclear World War III, thanks Daddy Putin, or by destroying our biosphere, thanks corporate greed, right? So like we've got these options for wiping ourselves out, and she's here capturing everything she can before we do so, and then she's just going to peace out and leave. Okay.
I mean, at this point, she's lived among us for at least 150 years.
At least,
130, 1893 to 2024, 131 years. Yep. At this point, she's had basically 2 human lifetimes to go from this really eloquent, forward-thinking Mark Twain socialite thing, this conversation about learning and growing and thinking about the past in different ways. Did she, obviously she might have been close with Mark Twain after that, not like super close, but like Mark did make sure that her hospital bills were taken care of after all of that instance. Regardless of the events of Time Zero, she was just a socialite then, maybe. But, and here she is in this era of jaded fake news sound bits. Nobody wants to talk to each other. Cancel culture. Don't even try to get along. Hold the grudge forever. Kind of situation. It would be enough to kill the brightest optimist.
It would.
Sad but true. Yeah.
Plus, and I don't know if anyone else thought of this, she lived through Jim Crow, segregation, racism, the riots, MLK Jr., all of that. And what do you think her involvement in that may have been? Now, don't quote me on this. I don't know how progressive the West was during all of this, if those things really didn't get too far out of the South all the way to, let's just say, the Pacific Coast out to California. But at the least, she knew all of that was going on, and that even as an alien species, Elorian, she looked exactly like the kind of person that
Yeah.
white America was going after.
We have no idea the cruelties that she has witnessed or endured, but we can look back at our own history and say it probably wasn't with great kindness that if she were in the South, that she was frequently exposed to people being nice.
And let's not forget, right? Like, LA is not a perfect place either. The Rodney King shooting was in 1992, right? Which triggered a week of unrest, of rioting throughout the city of LA. Like, they burned down a ton of things. It was rough. It was 12,000 people were arrested, 3,000 people were injured. It was not a fun time to be in LA. And that's not that long before this episode.
She's still living with the aftermath of George Floyd and BLM.
Sure.
Yes. And also the rise of law enforcement murders on people of minority.
Yeah.
I mean, she even talks about this during the scene, right? That this is a world that's spiraling into getting worse, right? Which means that she must have at least seen that for some period there, things were getting better. So let's hope that in the real world we can keep getting better instead of spiraling into sanctuary districts.
Yep.
All right, so this scene is actually really interesting for another good reason too. She actually pukes on the floor, and Picard recognizes it as being an aphkelt, or a time sickness. It's something that affects Elorians when time has been changed somehow. Doesn't explain how, doesn't explain anything. This is a brand new thing. We've never heard of it before, so we don't know its rules. But he uses this as evidence to try and convince her that something is up, in addition to essentially repeating to her something that she hasn't said yet, which we saw in the first episode. So it's a good way to convince her. So
to talk more about,
in the end, he seems to be winning her over.
To talk more about weird timey-wiminess, with that, if the Confederacy was intact, there'd be nobody to stop the L'Cool from getting destroyed in the Nexus, and then maybe there's a Guinan shard in there that is the reason why Guinan has this meta-temporal awareness.
Oh, another good one.
Presuming that
brain
the,
still
that the
hurts.
Nexus is interdimensional that way too.
And for whatever reason, the Confederacy just hasn't blown it up yet.
Who knows if you can?
I mean, they
could
probably
find
blew
a
up.
way.
They probably blew up the whale probe. Let's face it.
I don't know how.
Hey, you know, story for another time. I'm sure
The
found a way.
Federation was beyond launching their ships at it, but the Confederacy probably was like, just launch Starbase 1. It'll be fine.
Maybe they threw a Genesis torpedo at it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they terraformed it. Now there's a giant living Twinkie in the middle of the galaxy. Come to the space Twinkie. It's huge.
So, cutting back to Los Angeles PD headquarters, Raffi and Seven go out into the parking lot. Raffi just wants to steal a car, and Seven is very incredulous about, like, is it really a good idea to break into the vehicle of an agency that investigates theft? Really? And Raffi just has a little bit of fun with it. She pretends not to know how she brought her phaser along, and then points it at the glass, and it just like spider webs the glass and it just shatters, which is delightful. Then she opens it and starts hacking the computer with her tricorder or her pad. I'm not actually sure if it was a pad or a tricorder, but gains control over the system. It hacks the password, gets access to everything in like 30 seconds. And then my favorite thing happens. Seven goes to Raffi, if you could do that to the computer, why couldn't you just do that to the car? And Raffi goes, oh, I could. This was just more fun.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I have a feeling you guys probably already know what I'm going to say. This is the kind of stuff in Star Trek that drives me crazy.
Go on.
They're going hundreds of years into the past and just able to operate the technology we have now. You put me in front of a Windows XP computer today and forget it. I know nothing. I used to use it, but there's no hope. Hell, Windows 98 Second Edition, forget it. So how are they going from where they're at to all this time in the past know how to work all this stuff. There are things today that
They don't.
But-
They don't. That's what the pad is for. The pad translates things to what she expects.
Oh man.
That's easy, dude.
Well,
Come on,
and-
give me something tougher.
And I mean, I can answer my own question here, but that implies that the pad somehow knows how to access these systems and exploit them, which means that there's either some kind of hacking archive in the pad that it just knows how to access, which means the pad has more memory than one audiobook this time. But also...
It has Metasploit. It just has the current version of Metasploit. That's all it needs.
I hate
Metasploit
that.
is a program that can be used to hack anything. It has, I think it has like 30,000 different scripts that it can attempt to run against something just to try and get access to see if anything is maybe not patched. This is the 25th century equivalent of Metasploit. Here's the computer system. It's binary computational. Go. Take control. Takes 30 seconds, hacks the passwords, guesses anything random, decrypts everything it possibly can, and then gives you an interface that you understand to extract things from it. Works for me.
I don't know.
So,
I know.
audience, I just want to say, don't ever piss off Renzo.
He will hack your shit.
You'll get a message that'll be like, "Good morning, Dave."
He's already done it.
All right. So, look, it's not that easy, but I mean, it is.
You just made it
All right.
sound.
No, I mean, it really
You
is.
just explained how it could be
Metasploit-
that
We
easy.
are not responsible for anything the viewers or listeners do with Metasploit upon reading their seeing or any other way interacting with this episode. Don't sue us.
Never play with these things outside of a virtual machine, guys.
Oh.
All right. But yeah,
And never
so
test your code in production.
that presumes people have dev.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Not everybody has that luxury, Dag.
ow, my brain.
Yeah. All right. So they start taking they hotwire. They start the car, and they have to get to Castaic, which I didn't know what it was. But they have to get there. It's about an hour away. They finally get through to Girardi and start talking to her.
Pop quiz.
Mm-hmm.
How does Seven know how to drive?
Tom Paris.
Yep, 100%.
What?
Tom Paris was an
Tom is
old
obsessed with these
1970s Oldsmobile roadie. He loved it. He loved American culture, man. I swear, he like had a racing program on a holodeck and was like, "Come on, Seven, try it out." And Seven was like, "That smell is a waste of whatever."
Yeah.
I truly just wish there would have been a moment there where Seven said something along the lines of, "Tom would have loved this drive," kind of thing, and it would have been perfect for me. But yeah, no, it definitely makes sense that she learned it while on Voyager.
It would have been a great line. Rafi's like, "How do you know how to do that?" And she'd be like, "You remember Admiral Paris? Yeah, his son." What?
Right. That would have been nice. Yeah.
All right, so Girardi even tries to beam them over, but the power has failed again, so that's not going to work. So she starts trying to figure out a way to fix the power issues, and Seven is just speeding down the highway with cops following her and weaving in and out of traffic, going the wrong way on a one-way. So definitely a little on the scary side. And then the Queen gets Girardi's attention at the end of the scene, offering to help.
Right.
Wink, wink. And then the doctor tells Raffi and Seven to stand by. She found someone to assist her. And then Raffi and Seven look at each other like, "Oh shit."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's how you
No.
start getting sucked in.
It was still great. Like, I loved watching the scene of them driving. I don't know if they were actually driving or if they just had the car on like a...
They had one of those things up top of it.
I mean, I'm sure all the exterior scenes were second unit, but the interior scenes, if that was on a set or if it was on a closed driving set, however that was, I appreciated all of that. That was great.
Yeah, it was very well done. I mean, the effects for it look solid. Overall, just a really cool scene, especially the way that the Seven and Raffi like bantered back and forth. Like, they're great, delightful. Give me like a whole show of that.
Yes.
Yes, I need more.
All right,
Yeah.
so cut back to 10 Forward Avenue, and Guinan is now like explaining to Picard like what he told her in the intervening seconds. So you're from the future. The time's been altered. and his future was great future, but he's trying to prevent hell on Earth. So for all that, you still haven't told me your name. And then Picard like does the whole like I just don't want to affect the timeline shtick, which she clearly doesn't seem enthused by. And then he calls her the Watcher, and that she was watching over the future of humanity. Guinan's like very immediately responsive, like I'm no Watcher, right? I think this is an interesting detail here because the Elorians are a race of listeners is a line that we got from Soren, right? And we've kind of stuck with it. But listening is not the same as watching. They are two different things. So I think that was like a red herring that the writers did to us intentionally, making us all think that the Watcher was Guinan, when she's not it. And they reveal that later in the episode, obviously. But I do think it's interesting and clever that the writers and producers used that red herring on us, and it was effective.
I thought it was a bit too early in the season to already know who the Watcher was. So I had a feeling it wasn't Guinan just because of that. It was just a little too early.
Last episode, you were predicting it was Guinan.
No, I wasn't. I know I was.
So,
Why got to bring up old stuff?
speaking of old stuff, in this scene, Guinan and Picard are walking down the street, and she gestures broadly to what appears to be like a homeless encampment, and there's a mission that's doing outreach to them. What's the name of the mission, and why is it important?
It's named after the billionaire that sponsored Jadzia Dax.
Not true. It is the 21st Street mission that was run by Edith Keeler in the time travel episode City on the Edge of Forever.
Oh.
So the 21st Street mission is still missioning to people 90 years later.
Wow. Even after she was hit by that car, it's still going.
I mean,
no kidding.
Without the Confederacy, there was no McCoy to mess with her, and there was no Kirk to let her die, so she died. But I just thought it was cool.
It was.
That's a very good one. Man, they really went all out on getting in the little Easter eggs this episode, huh?
They sure did.
Deep cuts strike again.
And they're not getting by Dag. They're trying.
Oh, there's probably plenty of them that have, but yeah, no, that's really loved that one a lot. Just because of all the ways that they're tidily inserting little references to the time travel episodes. That's my shtick.
All right, so we get this further great discussion at this point where they're basically in front of Guinan's car as she's loading up all the last bits of her shit from the bar, and she tells him that, like, she doesn't have patience for humankind. Picard says she can stay here and watch them change and grow, and then Guinan goes, the only people who have patience are people who look like you. That's a luxury that people that look like you have. People who look like me don't have the time for patience. Very powerful scene.
It was. Which is why I'm so glad how they're handling this season. Excuse me. Every episode says something about what the state of America is like then. And they're coming right out and saying it. Not pulling any punches.
But Big J, isn't Star Trek 2 woke now?
It's woke. Yeah. I don't know the whole line. I know you're thinking you can never be too woke.
Yeah. All right. So pretty good scene. It basically ends with saying that in the 21st century, people took off their hoods and put on suits instead, but their ideas haven't changed. Really powerful line there. Very memorable. I think that Ito, the actress who's playing Guinan in this, does a fantastic job. I wonder just how much time she and Whoopi spent together being like, so here's how you play Guinan, here's how you're gonna play Guinan, kind of thing. To try and swap notes. I'm sure that they had a good bit of time.
They do,
but you're gonna play her with triceps that are drool worthy.
Agreed. I'd love to get a workout in with her.
Me too.
Okay, all right. But yeah, so Guinan remains pessimistic in this whole thing, saying that it would not be over soon enough. Pleads her to Picard's like, stay for a few more days, and then we cut back to the ICE Detention Center. Teresa is adamant that she didn't spend 6 years in medical school just to let people die because they were afraid to go to a hospital. She opened her clinic because she was a control freak, and
Ready to go to the hospital. Have you seen the hospital bills you can get? Of course. If I'm ever hurt or injured, do not call an ambulance. Get an Uber
I think
or Lyft.
that's a statement that is said by more than a lot of people. Like, if you're in the audience listening, just if that is something that you have said or thought about, like, give us a comment and just start upvoting that comment. Let's see how many listeners have, understand the medical system in the U.S. or in your own environment well enough to know that ambulance is the first price gouge on the way to medical health in the U.S.
Let me just tell you how bad it is in the U.S. Gee, excuse me. Here's how bad it is in the U.S. Several years ago, I had my first kidney stone, but didn't know it was that when I thought I was going to die. It was kind of pain that I would not even wish on anybody. Well, it was a Sunday. It was Memorial Day. And my wife at the time is talking about, well, we need to go to the hospital. I kid you not, even though I felt like I was literally going to die, the first thought in my head was ER on a Sunday, on a holiday. No, we're not going to be able to afford that. Really? I mean, it is insane that is really a very realistic thought that has to come into your mind when you think that you're hurt or injured, or that you're going to. And when we were leaving, have any of you guys ever had that kidney stone?
I've never had a kidney stone.
Okay.
I had one. It was awful.
Well, Renzo, Dag, you haven't had. Let me just tell you, on the way out the door, I'm looking at my kids literally like, this is it. This is the last time I'm going to see you guys. And I wish I would have done one of those. In the case of my death, here's a recording for them. It is that painful, especially when you don't know what it is. And you just, it's not so much the pain, but the fear also. Like, you just don't know what is going on. It's getting worse. But yeah, I literally had to think about, the bill for this. I'm going to have to just die here at home. That is America. I
mean, it's I think it's the leading cause of bankruptcy in the country, right? Like, medical debt is huge. We really need to get a handle on it. It's ruining too many people's lives.
We have a lot of ways here to bankrupt people. Education and healthcare. There's probably more, but those are the top two ways that we use to bankrupt people in this
declaring
country.
Bankruptcy doesn't even get you out of your educational debt too. Your student loans don't go away from declaring bankruptcy. So, all right.
I just want to say to the audience, drink water and avoid foods with high salt.
Yep.
Or don't. I'm not your doctor or your mom or any kind of official that has any ruling over your life whatsoever. Just saying.
I ain't your mama.
Renzo, back to you.
Right. Yep. Okay. So, anyways, we go back to Rio saying to Teresa that, like, where I come from, you'd be a hero. And she asks, well, where are you from? And Rios is now very silent. She then asks him if he knows what's going to happen to him. And he replies that he does not. And she admits she's not sure either. But there's a healthy fear of authority that she's had forever, and this is certainly not helping. So just then, the ICE officer that had tased Rios a few minutes ago shows up with discharge papers for Teresa, so she's leaving. And then he asks Rios for his own details, and he identifies himself as a captain. Captain of what? The USS Stargazer, and I'm here to stop a changing time, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
he just doesn't
The ICE
give a
officer doesn't give a fuck and just, like, laughs and steps away. I'm happy he didn't tase him. I half expected him to tase him again.
Part of me thought that he was actually going to believe him and go with it. Wait a minute. Wait
No
a
way.
minute. I know it was for a fleeting moment. It was just for a second, but I knew it wasn't going to happen. It was funny though.
It was a great scene, and I think that Rios is the only character on this show that could pull off that shtick pretty well. So, yeah.
And that is something I'm going to bring up at the end on our final thoughts thing, like Dag's gonna do, I got something I was taking note on my phone I wanted to talk about at the end of it.
Yeah, no, I just really would love there to be like a after the third season of Picard to get like a Santiago Cabrera led USS Stargazer show because he's amazing. So
Yeah.
All right, cutting back to the Seven and Raffi's like daredevil escape while driving. They keep running traffic lights. They are nearly crashing the UPS trucks. It's pretty bad. Raffi suggests not aiming for the people who are trying to cross the street very sarcastically and gets like a withering stare from Seven. That's when they get the update that Rios is no longer at the ICE facility. He's being placed onto a prison transport bus, and then it's heading to a sanctuary district on the border, which is pretty terrifying in and of itself.
One step away from being disappeared.
Yeah. So back to La Sirena, the Queen sees Girardi is like struggling. She comments that Girardi has the quickened flush of a woman with much to ask and no time to ask it. This Borg Queen is very poetic. I love the way that she discusses this stuff.
She is.
She just pushes Girardi, just ask. What do you want? Just ask. And don't politely demur yourself. Convince me. It's so much. I love this Borg Queen.
I know how to keep someone from dying. Just ask me how. She is. She's Palpatine. That's my prediction. I'm
Super
just telling you.
manipulative, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Palpa Queen.
Oh,
That's a good
nice. That was good.
so at this point, the Queen, Girardi asked the Queen to trust me to help me do this thing so that we can rescue these people and do this thing. And then the Queen responds with, beware the species that has not yet purged that word. And Girardi's like, trust? Help. Then the Queen goes, no, trust. Right? They're simply begging to be conquered. So it's an interesting back and forth doing this whole like
Who's begging to be
tete-a-tete.
conquered?
She's saying anybody who believes in the concept of trust is just begging to be conquered.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the exchange. Girardi is offering herself to the Borg Queen, at least discussions, conversation, her mind, because the Queen is dying of silence, right? In exchange for the Queen helping Girardi to get the transporters back online.
This is how it starts.
Yeah. She offers literally to offer a sad sack of stories in between pressing catastrophes. And that's enough for the Queen to agree to the deal.
So you're going to help me when I need you to help me, and in between the times that I don't need you to help me, we're going to chit-chat. The plot thickens.
Think of it this way. It's the most socially addicted person that you know. The person who can't get off of Twitter, who spends their whole day on Instagram, who talks endlessly, you can never shut up. And now suddenly they've spent years in a bubble. They can't talk to anyone for nothing. Now she's got an opportunity to talk to one person, and that's the leverage that one person has. I'll talk to you if you do what I want. There's a strong leverage on Girardi's part here. What the Queen needs most is something to talk to and to do. She is cut off.
You don't need to call me out like that, Renzo.
You don't spend that much time on Instagram. I've seen it.
No, I devote my time to Twitter.
And we're glad. We're
Yes,
glad
for sure. You are our communications chief.
Yep.
But yeah, no, but you see my point though, right? Like this is a Queen. The Queen is addicted to communication, so not having anybody to talk to is suffering for her. All right.
But imagine imagine the scope of that as well. Like the Borg Queen cut off from the collective because humans freaking raided that shit and destroyed it, and now they just have a Borg Queen that they can casually execute on public display without any fear.
Right.
That human confederacy, terrifying. The fact that
took down the Borg.
The fact that Picard soloed Ducat somewhere and almost died and killed Dukat and Martok and beheaded Sarek on the floor of the Vulcan Science Academy in front of his wife and son. Now, given that...
Poor Cybok.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it has to be
yeah.
Cybok because it can't be Spock, because there wouldn't be a woman who would have interbreeded with a Vulcan to produce a son.
True.
But just, it's all terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
How...
I mean, the image that's on the painting that's on the wall, really, of the CSS World Raiser just slicing through board cubes and firing in every direction all at once. The Confederacy was nothing to fuck around with.
And
Nope.
one thing I noticed about that World Raiser photo was it had its own saucer separation. Like, the saucer split out to reveal weapons on the inside. I was like, okay, that's a new thing for saucer separation. Okay.
Weapons on top of
Holy
weapons.
criminy.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like Battle Station Macross or something. Like one of those kinds of ships that transforms into a battle mode or something. Pretty cool.
Well, think of it. It is pretty realistic because that timeline is the Federation of Hold My Beer.
A
And
safe galaxy is a human galaxy.
right,
thought of it
United
more
Federation
as
of Hold My Beer.
I thought of it more as the Confederacy of fuck around and find out, and somebody fucked around, so everybody's finding out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know who
Yeah,
fucked
that-
around? It was Zephram Cochrane. That's who fucked around.
And he found
I'd love to see if First Contact in the Confederacy timeline worked out like it did in the Mirror Universe. As soon as the Vulcans get off, they get met with a shotgun blast. I'd love to know how that all goes down.
Well, I think we're going to be able to speculate further in a future episode because we know that Q has a deal with Adam Sung at some point.
All right, so our next scene is back with they're talking about Rios on the bus to the Sanctuary District on the U.S.-Mexico border. Raffi asks Girardi if the transporters are up. Doctor confirms that they can beam out, but she needs them to stop moving. Stop
Understandable.
moving. Yeah, just to get a better lock, because transporter locks.
They can do moving targets, but I think under this condition,
I've never beamed three
Don't risk
people
it.
from two locations on the one transporter pad before.
good reference. That was pretty good.
No, it wasn't. It was terrible.
So they
Being
do
the sitting
like
Spock
this-
into a standing position. Okay, no, I'm sorry.
They do this neat, like, half donut, keep the cops on their tail, and then stop, and just at the last second, beams out. Which is a little on the scary side, because that means that somebody, like, those cops were wearing their cameras, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
They usually
might
don't have them
seen the
turned on.
Shimmers, true, but they might have caught some of the shimmering from the beam out, which would be bad evidence to leave behind.
If they included it as a beam out instead of some kind of thermite organic destruction thing, like a suicide pill.
Well, if they'd really had enough time to think about it, opening a door could have solved that. They ran
didn't
out the
have the
door,
time.
stopped, ran out.
They didn't have the
Right,
time.
yeah, they're not thinking about that. It's just, fuck it, we got to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Not make it look plausible that we escaped from the vehicle, so as not to. We don't have time for the preservation of the timeline. We don't have time.
There's no time to talk about time. We don't have the time.
Right. All right, so cut back to Girardi on the La Sirena, and she's looking away from the Borg Queen, and the Borg Queen's like, "Oh, Agnes, time to talk some more," right? Like it's more of that, and Girardi's like, "Tap tap, I've limited your access again," and then just walks away while the Borg Queen like screams and howls behind her. So Girardi's got some cruelty to her too, because she knows that this Borg Queen is starved.
Yeah,
for
but
any
Girardi needs
interaction.
mental health in a moment.
Yeah.
She needs to just be like, I need 5 minutes and a beer.
What she needs is a nap.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
get in
true.
the Snickers.
She needs to rest.
We need to give the Borg Queen a Snickers. What do you think she'll turn into? It's like Spock.
I'll pack Goldwaith.
I wouldn't want to give her any biological material. I don't want to give her any material. She might start growing legs.
Oh god.
From a Snickers.
They'll be
Borg-
really little legs.
Borg Queen on a
It'll be
tiny
like-
little list.
It'll be like Deadpool's hand.
Guinan will be like, do you skip leg day?
Does everyone in collective skip leg day?
All right, so cutting back to Guinan, back to 10 Forward Avenue. Picard is pleading with her just to help. Guinan is adamant that she is not the Watcher that he seeks. He takes a gamble and like says his name to her, and as soon as she says his name, her attention is piqued. The name Picard is somehow significant to her, and what she's looking for is the supervisor, also called a Watcher, who is designed to watch over the destiny of certain individuals and certain worlds. And they're not big on explanations, they're not really friends, but she can get in a face-to-face meeting, sort of. All Guinan can say is that the Watcher will want to meet him. So, Gary 7, Dag?
Possibly. Very possibly. I'm fixating on the license plate of this car. For the viewers, the license plate of this car says SO2E01, which I translate as Season 2, Episode 1. But this is Episode 4. So I wonder if they're talking about a different Season 2, Episode 1 of another Star Trek franchise that might include some kind of Watcher. Perhaps Season 2, Episode 1 of Enterprise, which I think introduced or brought back Daniels.
It did.
Which he could be the Watcher.
I just watched that episode.
He could have been a Watcher.
So
that was Shockwave, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part 2.
Yeah.
That license plate seems pretty intentional, so we need to go back and
we need to know more.
Rewatch Season 2, Episode 1 of every Trek series and look for a clue.
I don't think it's important for TOS. Season 2, Episode 1 of TNG was The Child. Season 2, Episode 1 of DS9 was the beginning of the Circle trilogy. So that's all Bajoran. No chicanery there. Voyager Season 2, Episode 1 was not a sequel to anything because Basics ended out the season, but there wasn't any time travel in that first episode. Archer had Shockwave with Daniels, which is why I don't think Daniels is going to be in this. It would be great if they got the actor back to be like, hi. Like, what? But I think it could be said that maybe Daniels was a Watcher, if we could retcon that, because he definitely fits the bill a little bit.
Yeah.
I really like the Gary 7 idea more because she does the reference to him being a supervisor is pretty legit.
So what season was the Gary 7 episode?
I thought it was 2.
Season 2, Episode 26.
Okay, so close.
I think there is something. I think there is something in Season 2, Episode 1 as I don't know that like you said, if this was the 4th episode, why wouldn't they have done that? Well, obviously because it is a hint, and it's not that it was.
I mean,
snafu,
we might
right?
be.
Like, they just shifted things around.
We legit might
too
just be
deep.
digging. That's all.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, so Gary 7 was called a Class 1 supervisor in 1968. His job was to like watch on the development of the planet and make sure that things stayed roughly on track.
And Gary had been a human that had been kidnapped by people for this role for the 1960s. So it could be totally cool if is his assistant actress still alive?
Terry Gar.
It would just be really amazing if Terry Gar was like, "I'm retiring, I'm done," and just hands it off to Laris.
I'm amazed that you knew her name.
You talking to me?
She was Phoebe's mom in Friends.
Okay, I found her. April Tatro is the name of the actress. She played Isis the cat. She was the voice.
That's the cat, but his
human form. She was the human form.
The human form. No, Isis was her own entity.
She's still alive.
Terry Gar was just the secretary who got grabbed into things, but Isis and Terry were in the same room with each other.
Yeah, she's alive. 74.
All right, cool. So it's not beyond reality to maybe see a Terry Gar cameo as the sidekick.
Technically, you're correct.
Obviously, the actor who played Gary 7 has passed because he was 40, almost 60 years ago.
Wow.
All right. So, anyways,
you know Terry Gar is from a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio.
I don't know anybody in Ohio. Nobody important anyway.
Oh, come on, man! Dang, you two have like teamed up tonight. It's hate on Big J Day.
Is not.
Say that all the
We
time.
love you.
We
All
love
right.
you on Monday nights after 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the other times, like, fuck Big J.
All right, but no. So, cut back to a nearby park. Guinan is like sitting down with Picard on like a little bench. If you try to hide anything from the Watchers, they'll know. They'll probably try and bite your eyelids off.
Ooh.
So, wants to take his comm badge. So, kind of a rough little discussion there. Just then, a little girl in a butterfly pattern dress
Butterflies.
with colorless eyes, like all whited over,
hmm
tells Guinan that she should run.
So
be honest.
Guinan and the supervisor have a checkered past.
They got beef.
I'll be honest,
Yeah.
when this scene first happened, I didn't think it was the supervisor. I thought it was Q somehow fucking with them, because we know that Q and Guinan do not get along,
Right.
right? So I thought that it was something along those lines.
Could still be.
Maybe.
They do seem to be keeping their distance from each other. Or at least Q's keeping his distance from her. I don't know.
Yeah, so at the end of the scene, in the middle of the scene when Guinan is leaving, Picard reminds her not to leave Earth just yet. Like, there's still much more to listen to here. You're not done with humanity. Change always comes later than we think it should. And
You're going to miss your
Guinan
front
doesn't
row
answer.
seat to World War III.
Guinan doesn't answer, but leaves anyways. The girl takes his hand and they walk off together, demands the comm badge, takes out the power core, hands it back, which is an interesting little adjustment. I mean, this entity seems incredibly powerful. It's able to hop mines all over the place. Why does it care about the comm badge, of all things?
Because other things can track the comm badge. That's what she kind of says in that scene. Is like there's other factions here. So
Oh, please don't let it be a temporal Cold War thing.
I don't think they're going to lean into that. I really don't. It's just she did
Please,
allude
God, no.
to there being, other entities out there that could track that comm badge, and she's like, "Hi, Tuvix's phantom tongue of strangeness.
He woke up.
You've been a good
He's a
boy.
little-
You've been a
He's
good boy."
licking your beard.
Yeah, that's what nuts do.
But yeah, so there are other things out there. We're not the only ones, and we're still leading Picard to the supervisor.
Yep, so they walk down this part of the park. At some point, the girl blinks and her eyes turn back to normal, and she just seems a second confused and then just walks away. Another dude comes up, and Picard demands to understand what the hell is this pantomime that's going on? What is this? Again, just kind of walks with him for a second, and then at the last second, now there's another person standing at the end of the hall, or at the end of this part
Tunnel.
under a bridge, I guess. Yeah, it's like a tunnel under a bridge. It's a woman, and she asks are you a friend of Guinan's? Turns around and goes, absolutely not. And it is very much
Not just
Laris.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Somebody who looks very much like Laris.
Which I thought was interesting because that's the same actress.
Definitely the same actress. Doesn't have the
So-
same accent, mind you.
Doesn't have the
Never
ears
heard much.
either.
Doesn't have
Right,
the
or the
ears.
ears.
So I'm betting it's more something along the lines of this is a face that I reconstructed from your memories, somebody who is recently in your memories. So
But why would that matter? I mean, really, why would it matter?
It
just
honestly,
so that we have someone that looks familiar.
genetic recombination is so out there that it would not be impossible for someone on Earth to look just like Laris.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. The way that
I-
that
well-
our what is it? There's genome and
Phenotypes.
phenotype. The way that our phenotypes manifest, regardless of genotype, it would not be impossible. It's like saying there's no life out there just because there's life on Earth. There's definitely a phenotypical clone out there.
Yeah, a
Right.
doppelganger is possible, right? I'm not ruling it out, but I think that would be a really shitty explanation.
Well, but if
You're not
you
wrong.
know you're already going to meet someone, something, some alien, whatever you want to call this person, or even if that's the person, And at that point, why would it need to be someone you're familiar with? I would think that it doesn't matter because I already know what situation I'm going into. Now, if you were in one of those virtual reality kind of, we're trying to get information from your mind, you're not really here, but we're going to show you familiar faces to get you to talk, that would be something different. If I already know that you're obviously not that person, I already know that, it doesn't make sense to make it someone from my memory. Like,
so maybe it's not even something conscious for this person, for this being, right? Maybe they just look like someone that the other person longs to see forever, right? Whoever they're talking to, you see somebody that you want to see. And we know that Picard has recently been thinking about Laris because he was told that Laris and Siobhan were killed on the steps of the Romulan Senate during the occupation of Romulus or some shit like 2 episodes ago.
but he wasn't thinking about her ears.
She's in a human environment that needs to match.
Oh.
And they couldn't afford a bandana.
Or a beanie.
Tuvok reference.
Oh, yep.
But yeah, so generally speaking, works out well enough. It's a very creepy scene. The portal that they step through also reminds me a lot of the portals that they used in Assignment Earth.
Yep.
So I'm still sticking with my Gary 7 connection.
Okay.
But yeah.
I kind of like that a little bit, that we haven't really explored those entities and who they are and what their shtick is. So if we're going to explore a little bit of that, that's cool. I was
I'd be down for
getting TVA vibes from Loki.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
the Time Variance
Just
Association.
to support
something.
my own
Authority,
my own
yeah.
personal
Time Variance
headcanon
Authority.
that superheroes
Again,
exist.
Dag, Disney, Paramount. Never the twain shall meet.
Disney Mount.
Disney Mount.
You want more consolidation?
Yes.
I want a
Just give me
Star
all the
Wars Star
consolidation.
Trek crossover. That's what
Yes.
I want.
That is, we have been, yes, just, yes.
As long as I get to see like a Defiant blow up a Star Destroyer in like 3 shots, I'm down.
I just want to see the Defiant and the Millennium Falcon just, duo a Star Destroyer or something. Just
It'll be a
team up.
one-man job for the Defiant, man.
Well, but it would be cool to look at. I know that.
Okay,
But
just making
still.
Yeah, but the whole time Cisco would be negging Han Solo for betraying his uniform to the Imperials.
You have to die to die.
sure. All right, so we cut to our last scene, which is probably one of our most mysterious scenes, and we're at Jackson Roykirk Plaza,
I like it.
named after scientist Jackson Roykirk.
Mm-hmm. Did you
who
notice
is
the
an
name on the newspaper?
Yes.
Reference to Chris
Yeah,
Brenner?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
not.
Which is the guy that Jadzia meets, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's interesting
Yeah.
here. He fights unionization,
Yeah,
which
he's
is
Elon Musk.
it's a very Musk Bezos thing.
Well, yeah, if you're rich and got billions of dollars, you don't want the commoners to get together and try to have, rights or
So another interesting
benefits.
thing, the Europa mission they talk about here is a real planned space mission for 2024.
Unmanned,
Really?
though.
Planned but unmanned, yes.
Right. The one that they're showing here, not so unmanned.
No, that's true. I had friends being like, why are they repping Europa when we have other missions that are cooler than that? I'm like, because Europa is real in 2024.
Oh.
Anyways, so we've got this crazy scene going on with a young, beautiful blonde woman sitting there reading like a novel, a Dixon Hill novel of all things, called The Pallid Sun. And she's just smiling and having a good time. She's enjoying reading it. And we get this kind of nefarious narration going on. It's cute, obviously, but you can't do it. And you know it. Oh, sure, you played the game for a while when nothing was at stake, blah, 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 blah. He's like negging her like crazy, almost as though by speaking it, he's going to will it into being after he snaps his fingers. But at the end of the moment, when he snaps his fingers, shit ain't happening.
Nope.
And then he goes, that's unexpected and most unfortunate.
What is up with Q? I got to know this.
I feel like Q's arc is the reason why they filmed season 2 and 3 back to back and they're ending on season 3. I feel like
Wait a minute, ending? Like no more Picard
Ending,
after
ending.
No,
Done.
it ends in 3.
No.
done. Yeah, they just finished shooting on 3 like a month ago. They're done. Picard has
What?
wrapped. We'll
Why?
see what comes of it. Obviously, they're not going to announce
3-season arc.
They're not going to announce it. I mean, Avatar: The Last Airbender went 3 seasons. It's fine. Discovery went 3 seasons. It's fine.
That's why I'm saying after the 3rd season of Picard, I want my Stargazer show with Rios played by Cabrera out there on the ship, fucking rocking.
That'd be great.
I didn't know that it was just like it was a done deal. We're doing 3 seasons of Picard and that's it.
Yeah.
Man.
That's all that Patrick Stewart signed up for, so that's all that they wrote for the full arc of the show.
And Patrick Stewart's the EP too, so.
Right.
So, all right. My thing that I wanted to bring up at the end of the episode is speculation only, but the Borg Queen on the Stargazer is Jurati.
I've heard this.
Jurati.
I'm accepting of it possibility.
Her, that moon-faced assassin of joy.
I don't know what moon-faced means, but I just think that you've got a really cool Borg ship that looks a little bit like the little symbol on her tea packet here. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about. If you're listening to us, please check out the video on YouTube. It has a lot more visuals that we can check out there.
That's a stretch.
It's a
Dag.
star. Leave me alone. Let me have this. So
It's like
we
a
have
compass rose to me.
we have okay. So we have a Borg ship that looks like a compass rose.
No. The thing on the tea bag looks like the compass rose.
Yeah, and that looks like the ship. So anyway.
Go on.
It's just
Get your jollies off.
we before any of this, the Borg were like suing for peace. That was the theory, and then they show up and they're like, "I need power," and Picard didn't trust it and blew up everybody, and then they ended up in this confederacy. Okay, so if Jurati becomes the Borg Queen due to the fact that she's impressed the existing Borg Queen and has already had a taste of a pseudo assimilation of some sort, it's not much of a stretch for me to just be like, okay, let's lean on this and see if we can fit some more pieces in here. Jurati dealing with the Queen, showing up masked. Obviously, the identity of the Queen is important. It's not going to be anybody we don't know. And the story of Picard's mother would be one way Agnes would communicate to Picard to trust me.
Yeah.
So
Down with all of it.
I definitely agree that the identity of the Borg Queen that was on the Stargazer is very important. It's part of the plot, hence the whole reason for the mask. And everything so far, interaction between Agnes Jurati and the Borg Queen, seem to hint that that's where it's going. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I may have to rewatch it, but to me, it seems like Jurati is a bit on the short side compared to the height and stature of the Borg Queen we saw on the bridge of the Stargazer.
She's wearing heels. Like Bayonetta
It would
heels.
also be poetic for Jurati to be the one to decode her own message.
Yeah. So I'm totally down with that theory, and it fits really well with my theory about the point of Q doing all of this, right? It's to get Picard to give this queen, the queen with the clock face, a chance, right? That's the mistake Picard made. Here you're supposed to warn to give her a chance. Here's what's interesting though: this blonde woman that's doing the reading of the book. This is revealed in the subtitles and in the credits. Her name is Renee Picard, so she is a.
Quit doing the subtitles, man. That's cheating.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. Whatever. We're gonna put this out there. This is the spoiler section, man. If you want to turn it off, you can turn it off.
I don't even watch it.
Didn't he mention a Renee?
He did in the first episode.
Was one of the first people to travel to another colony in another?
No, instrumental to early exploration of the Sol system.
Okay, so this is that ancestor that he mentioned.
I think so.
Okay, because I was like, his nephew's name was Renee, and
yes.
I'm just going on that. I was like, Okay, so we're gonna have a
Boy.
dude. But okay, no, this is totally cool.
Yeah, there's a difference between Renee and Renee.
Yes.
So that's the difference here.
No,
But yeah.
that's cool. I didn't even think to put you'd think after years of doing this with y'all, I'd have the subtitles on just to catch those little drop bits there.
It was
I
really
don't do
just
it.
Renee Picard giggles.
Laughs, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You fools.
But yeah,
Well,
How do you do the
and-
subtitles? Can't you hear it?
Well, but look at the name of the book, The Pallid Sun.
I have no idea what that means.
What's the word pallid mean, Renzo?
white or pale.
Who's the only pale sun that we really know? Pale face. They said it in Times Arrow. Data.
Data.
Tracy Torme, a writer for TNG, has always been credited as the writer in universe for all of the Dixon Hill novels. The Pallid Sun, though, totally getting that. Leading into that Adam Sung connection.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, this is how they get the Adam Soong, like Brent Spiner connection into the episode.
Hmm.
I don't know, guys. I'm thinking you can't stretch taffy enough as much as we're stretching
Hey,
some of these
we're
references.
not using
It's a little
taffy.
deep.
We're using
Listen,
Stretch
buddy.
Armstrong.
Stretch
When you
Armstrong.
can turn on the subtitles and keep up, then you can gauge us on how far we're stretching the taffy.
I can turn it on. I just don't because of stuff like this. Like I think that's giving away something in a following episode that's Renee Picard.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Either way.
just
So the
You-
theory here that we're cooking up with is that she's one of the people on this Europa mission. She's an ancestor of Picard, and she's somehow involved in this launch that's going to happen soon because there are posters for it everywhere. Maybe she is related to this whole irrevocable point of timeline divergence, where
there has to be a reason why there was special attention put on
and
her.
why Q is trying to neg her as to not doing whatever thing that she's about to do.
and what
Right.
in the hell could she do that causes the Confederacy to happen?
Well,
I don't even want to presume, right? It could just be that she doesn't go on the mission, so the mission goes into a disaster. So Earth is now more reluctant to
So-
do space flight or something.
weird stuff. Like the scenes that we have seen with Q across the table from Adam is Q handing Adam what appears to be some kind of, to me, a projectile. It looks like he's handing Adam a weapon. And I think he's telling Adam to kill Renee because his snap couldn't do that. Q is being affected by something that's messing with his powers. So he's eliciting someone to do this dirty work for him.
I've never seen Q as an assassin. I don't think that that's what he was trying to do. Was
Neither do I.
just
I
Okay,
think he was trying
no,
to psych
killer.
her out.
that's fine. That's fine. But I also noticed the headline on Q's paper is for January and not April.
True.
So
Do you think this scene might have been a flashback then?
no.
it could be a flashback. It could be a technical error. It could be he's reading an old newspaper.
Right. There's too much going on for this to have been a flashback. There's too much layered as it is.
Yeah. But I like the Jackson Roy Kirk mention because that goes to Nomad, which implies that Nomad was created and launched because it's 2024 and the Nomad probe I think was launched in like 2017 or something like that.
I hope we get a Voyager 7 reference too.
Vija. Yeah, how is the Confederacy gonna deal with freaking V'ger, man?
That's still going to happen. Who knows? I don't see it working because the Confederacy is a shoot first, ask questions later. So there is no way that they could have
Yeah.
survived the V'ger encounter.
Maybe the planetary shields that they had in the Confederacy timeline were strong enough to actually withstand the bolts from V'ger, because they've had a lot more time having to like protect that planet because they had to keep the atmosphere from flying away.
Right.
And the whale probe.
Well, hold on. With V'ger, we know V'ger's one of our things, but maybe in the Confederacy records were better kept and they were better able to recognize that signal when it was in orbit of Earth.
Dag.
What?
Maybe the Confederacy happens because World War III never happens, and as a result, those records are kept around better.
Okay. Somehow World War III doesn't happen or happens differently.
And as a result, the government that rises out from the calamity
Post-atomic
that is World
horror?
War III. No, there's no post-atomic horror. Let's just assume that there wasn't a war.
Well, okay.
Instead of the war that makes humans like realize that we're a small blip in the galaxy and we encounter the Vulcans, what comes out of it is some fascist totalitarian state that took over the whole planet.
Terra Prime.
Basically.
MAGA.
And that's
Terra
MAGA.
Prime,
MAGA Prime.
Yeah, exactly.
Trumpsters.
So that leads to the Confederacy because Earth never had like an existence-threatening moment
Also,
like World War III.
Very aptly named metaphor, the Confederacy, to the Civil War,
I
obviously.
I don't
Yep.
think that that's a mistake. Or an
No, not
accident.
at all. Not at all.
So
Well, it
Confederation to
was-
Confederation.
Yeah, what's the reverse of federation? Confederation. That's
an empire.
that's too mirror universe.
It's been done.
Yeah, but I'm glad that this is, they're really trying to not make you think mirror universe. It is a different thing. But so this was what I was going to say earlier, is that it's we saw this in First Contact, where Troy tells Riker, we just have to tell him what's going on. There's too much at stake here to screw around worrying about the timeline. And she was right. There was
I mean, they
no
blanked
time
his
to argue
mind
about time. They didn't have
afterwards.
time. But here's what I'm thinking is, if you're going back in time and you're dealing with a situation like that, do you really have time to be that covert about everything? I would think that there's a lot more to worry about than...
So, I want to address that in the sense that they figured out real quick in First Contact what the problem was. The Borg were attacking Zefram Cochrane's compound in an attempt to stop First Contact. So Plan 1, destroy the Borg. Plan 2, see what the damage was. Plan 3, get First Contact back on the rails. And that's all they had to do. They didn't have to worry about time as long as they focused on that objective. Here, they don't know what the tipping point's going to be. So they have to be as mute as possible to not influence anything while they figure out what that is. We spent the last 2 episodes trying to get the gang back together because Rios had a concussion. But, point of those things is we don't know what the objective is. And we have to create as few ripples as possible until we figure
Because
it out.
in First Contact, there was a hard time.
Right.
It has to be right at this time, or the Vulcans are they'll never notice you. So
Right.
we don't have
Cochrane-
time for secrets.
Right. Cochrane was very much like, why 11:30? Because that's when the Vulcans are going to come through the system and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they shared it with him because they're like, literally, we have hours.
Yeah. Right.
We know exactly how it's going to go. Let's just do this and get it done. And, I mean, he had his own
And
little
they know what
anxieties
happens if
about
they
that.
fail too.
Right,
They
because
got
they
that
saw that
glimpse of the
board.
assimilated Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The crux of Coda right there in First Contact. But
That's just my thought, is if it's something that is supposed to be this dire, but you're right, there's not a hard situational time that has to happen, or it doesn't work. If the ship, Zefram Cochrane's ship, had launched any later than it did, then it wouldn't have mattered if it was warp capable. He that may have just been a one and done for him. It was doing it at the right time to get the attention of the Vulcans is what set everything in motion. My thought with this was just that
I just want to point
I
out,
don't know.
30 minutes ago, you were saying that these characters are being too reckless with the information that they reveal that might change the past. But now you're saying these characters need to reveal more information just to get people to do what they need.
I changed my mind.
Oh, okay.
Captain's prerogative.
I agree.
Where are your pips, bud?
For the audience,
On my uniform in the closet there.
For the audience who stuck with us, don't forget to like and comment. Tell us what you think is going to happen in the future of Star Trek Season 2 for Picard. By the time you listen to this, episode 5, Fly Me to the Moon, will be airing on Thursday, April 1st. It's not going to be April Fool's Day for us. And we will be back next week with our take on that episode. And don't forget, in 2 weeks, Will Wheaton, right here on Beyond Trek Podcast. Thank you for always going boldly with us. Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters. Big thanks to Stephanie Baker, S. Tam, Anne Marie, Jim Cook, and Nora Hickson. We really appreciate your support. Thanks for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.